Hi, my name's James. When I was 24, I quit my job to follow a lifelong dream of traveling the world and taking pictures. This took me on a year-long backpacking trip through Latin America. I toured the colorful streets of Cuba, hiked up volcanoes in Guatemala, trekked for 10 days in Torres del Paine, and even biked through the deserts of Argentina. But when I was in Bolivia, I took a picture that changed my life forever. You see, this cow looked just like this dog, Colby, that I grew up with and loved dearly. However, these two very similar beings led wildly different lives. I started doing research into how my habits were affecting the world around me. Whoa. I knew that I had to make a change, so I tied up my laces, packed up my gear, and set off on a 2-year journey to learn more about a movement that's taking the world by storm. I met with prominent plant-based doctors, companies creating alternatives that are better for all of us, scientists taking the animal out of the protein equation. And I also met with a whole host of inspiring vegans from all around the world who are pushing back against what we've been told to eat, told to drink, and who we've been told to be. Welcome to Planet Vegan. For the past 2 million years, human beings have been eating meat. During dry spells, meat gave our ancestors a much-needed source of nutrition that was conveniently available year-round. However, fast forward 2 million years, and meat consumption has changed a lot since the days of the hunter-gatherers. What used to be a necessity for our survival has now become an everyday staple in the human diet. Since the 1970s, the number of humans on planet Earth has doubled, while meat production has more than tripled. The average person eats more than 90 pounds, that's about 40 kilos, of meat every single year, and worldwide, more than 300 million tons of meat are produced annually, with Australia, the United States, and Argentina being the 3 countries with the highest amount of meat consumption per capita. As of 2024, the global meat market brings in more than $1.5 trillion every year. To put that number into perspective, if you stacked 1.5 trillion $1 bills on top of each other, they would stretch around the world more than 4 times. That's a lot of dough. This growing appetite for meat has led to a wide range of problems, from animal welfare to human health and climate change. Meat consumption is causing some pretty massive issues across the globe. At the same time, I also learned that there's a growing number of companies working to solve these problems by creating alternatives to traditional meat. The first stop on my journey took me to a city named Maastricht in the Netherlands to talk to the minds behind Mosa Meat, a company creating meat in a lab.
I'm Mark Post. I am professor of physiology here at Maastricht University. So I teach medical students, but I'm mostly known, I guess, for having produced the first hamburger from bovine stem cells.
In 2013, Mark Post and his company Mosa Meat developed the world's first lab-grown hamburger. Mark and the company's COO, Peter Verstraat, held a press conference where they cooked up this cultured meat hamburger and shocked the public with images of the future of meat. The only downside was, well, the price tag, a modest $300,000 for one patty. However, Mark told me that with enough scale and a little bit of time, Mosa Meat will eventually be able to produce these burgers for less than what it costs to make a conventional burger.
I guess it's fair to say that got the field going. I think many of the companies out there, if not all of them, were inspired by this event and started thinking by themselves. Most of them are scientists, started thinking by themselves, hey, this might be possible. This is not crazy, this is actually possible.
And surveys show that whether you call it cultured meat or in vitro meat or clean meat, there are tiny differences in acceptance, but it's not a major thing. I think 20 years from now, we will just call it meat because that's what it is. And then we will call conventional meat, if it still exists, we will call that something else. I'm a medical doctor by training. I did medical research for 25 years of my life, mostly to make blood vessels and to study blood vessels. That ended up in tissue engineering blood vessels, which is a technology using stem cells and biomaterials to create new tissues.
I spent most of my working life in the meat industry, actually working for some of the bigger companies out there like Campofrio, Sara Lee Foods, Smithfield.
Meat is almost a culprit of our food problems in the future because it's such a resource-intense part of our food. It's highly valued, it's protein-rich, but it is very expensive to make in terms of Earth's resources.
It takes about 660 gallons of water to make 1 quarter pounder with cheese. And that's about the same amount of water the average American showers with every day for 2 months. So if you're trying to conserve water, you have a drought in California, you want to conserve water, what's the answer? Is it low flow shower heads? Well, yeah, that'll help a little. But what if you stopped eating quarter pounder with cheese? I mean, it has a tremendous impact on water use.
For cows, it's worse than for pigs. For pigs, it's worse than for chicken. And for chicken, it's worse than for fish. So there's sort of a gradient. That's why we are focusing on beef and not on fish, although there are other good reasons to focus on fish.
Looking back, I may have been aware of some of that impact while I was in the industry working for it. Well, maybe one tends not to be as vocal about that when in that industry. But anyway, I really found it out while I was becoming more and more actively involved with Mosa Meat, and it's just amazing to see how many boxes it ticks, this technology. It's almost unbelievable. It's almost too good to be true, actually.
The more research that I did into the impacts of meat production, the more shocking the numbers became. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, more than 70 billion land animals are killed every year for human consumption, and up to 2.3 trillion marine animals are killed. Those vast numbers seem incomprehensible. And when I did the math, I found out that more than 80,000 animals are killed every second. Okay, let's be honest, charts don't quite do this justice. Imagine that you're out to dinner with some friends, when all of a sudden those animals that are killed every second start piling up in front of you. Cows, pigs, chickens, sheep, turkeys, horses, dogs, rabbits. You get the picture. Okay, and don't forget about the fish. From an ethical point of view, something clearly has to change. But the issues with modern-day meat production don't stop at the ethics.
The numbers are just quite devastating. I don't have a problem with people eating meat. I have a problem with meat consumption getting out of hand, and that's what's happening. There's all sorts of environmental issues associated with meat production, and for me, those are the dominant ones when it comes to making a choice.
The animal agriculture industry is one of the most destructive industries on the planet. Farming animals takes up a lot of arable land, and to grow the food for them takes up even more. This leads to deforestation, species extinction, water depletion, and ocean dead zones. WWF even claims that up to 80% of deforestation in the Amazon rainforest is due to cattle ranching for beef production.
There are health issues associated with meat production, as I'm sure many of your viewers know as well.
Diets high in animal products lead to heart disease, several forms of cancer, especially digestive cancers like colorectal cancer, and hormonal cancers like prostate cancer in men, breast cancer in women. Diabetes is strongly linked to animal products, high blood pressure, and I don't need to tell you about the infectious diseases, Salmonella and E. coli. Those start out in an animal's digestive tract. They end up spreading all over everything.
Infections by bacteria and viruses to maybe even the biggest one, the overuse of antibiotics, leading to bacteria that are resistant to antibiotics, which arguably could be one of the biggest health problems for mankind in the future. And again, 80% of all the antibiotics are used in the meat industry, and not so much as antibiotics, but more as growth factors. So that's kind of strange.
When it comes to cultured meat, new research shows that for many reasons, it's a far superior product to traditional meat. A 2019 report from Harvard University took a look at the 90 reasons that we should all be considering a move to cellular agriculture. Some of the reasons included moving away from antibiotic use in farming practices, keeping mercury out of fish, using far less land, and even ending the psychological harm done to slaughterhouse workers.
I think it will be a healthier product. We have more control over how it's being produced. So, first of all, there's no contamination. There will be no bacterial contamination. There will be no antibiotics in it. We can guarantee that. There will be no diseases in it, no BSE type of things. We can guarantee that as well.
And there's obviously animal welfare. And as I said earlier, I'm not doing this primarily for animal welfare reasons, but I'm not a freak. I don't like it that animals need to be killed for meat. So it's a great bonus. Great bonus.
And you know what gives me the most enthusiasm and heart about that, the whole clean meat market, is that you have strategics, right? Companies that are in meat processing, not only in the United States, but internationally, that are dipping their toe into this market. So they are already interested at this level, because this could be a potential source of income and a potential source of diversification and replacement, which is what we hope, right? Eventually.
By using in vitro technology to create cultured meat, Mosa Meat claims that they will be able to reduce the number of cattle around the world from around 1.5 billion to as few as 30,000. 50,000 times fewer cattle than have been bred into existence today. That all sounds like great progress, but how exactly is cultured meat produced?
Cultured meat is meat as we know it, made from stem cells, where originally meat is also coming from, yet it's produced outside of the animal instead of inside of the animal. Basically, it replicates all the natural processes that happen in repair of muscle tissue, but takes that outside of the body and produces meat in large quantities in a more efficient and, of course, animal-friendly way.
Mark explained to me that the process of producing cultured meat is actually quite simple. You extract a small number of cells from a living animal, or a cow in this case. You then create a controlled environment for the cells to grow. And in time, they replicate and are formed into the familiar hamburger shape that we all know.
So from a very small piece of meat, you can make a tremendous amount of meat.
Much like our muscles grow when we go to the gym and work out, the muscle cells in vitro work in a similar way and grow after being contracted and relaxed over and over again.
And in about 3 weeks, you have a muscle fiber that under the microscope looks exactly the same as a muscle fiber directly from a cow or from a steak. And then you put 10,000 of these muscle fibers together and you have a hamburger. I know that there are people who don't like the idea that we still have to poke cows or chicken in the butt to get their stem cells. We are working on that. We try to get as many yield from a single cell as we can. Personally, I'm not too much in favor of creating a cell bank that will source our meat forever in the future. I think it's a highly dangerous and vulnerable concept. So I kind of like the idea to have, cattle around the sort of the natural system that propagates forever, because we have shown that can. And then you once in a while take their stem cells, and then we just have to, get over the fact that we are still using animals for our food.
In 2023, Mosa Meat unveiled a brand new scale-up facility to complete their 80,000 square foot campus. This will allow them to officially start scaling up commercial production of cultured beef. But how is the rest of the meat industry reacting?
It could be highly disruptive to some of the industry, specifically farmers and, of course, slaughterhouses. The meat processing industry will be fine because that will basically remain the same. And then the slaughterhouses, I have no solution for them, to be honest. I have no idea. I think it's a very small industry. There are not a lot of people working in slaughterhouses. But yeah, if you were somebody working in a slaughterhouse, I would start thinking about an alternative career.
Like 10, 20 years ago, it was clear we were emptying the seas, and still fishermen were protesting against them not being able to fish anymore, despite the logic behind it. And their rationale was, yeah, but I gotta live. I have a family. You cannot destroy that.
The vast majority of people who work in meat packing plants and slaughterhouses are not there because they want to be there. They're there because they have no other choice. In the United States, for example, they are often non-English speaking immigrants, sometimes not even legally residing in the country, who cannot advocate for their rights. They work in conditions that are so exploitive and so dangerous that at one point Human Rights Watch said that they violate basic human rights. And you can imagine the psychological toll it takes on someone when they work in a death-saturated environment and they are surrounded by and participating in killing day in and day out.
Then there's another category, and that's the feed producers, the feed for animal producers. So you have to think about that, because nobody really wants disruption in society, and we don't want that either. I'm not too worried about farmers, because in my mind, farmers are ultimate entrepreneurs. They try to extract value from their land, and whether they do that with pigs or with potatoes, they actually don't care. I was recently in Minnesota addressing 100 pig farmers. And of course, that's a little bit of a challenge. They were looking at this, what's this, right? Is this going to disrupt my industry? But at the same time, they said, if I can produce meat in a nicely heated environment and don't have to shove pig manure at -20, that would probably make my life more comfortable, right? So they immediately see, oh yeah, this is going to be a different production system. I may have a place in that production system, and actually it may be more comfortable than what I'm doing right now.
And so it's smart of them to get involved at this early stage and then say, okay, here's how we're going to swap this out. Here's how we're going to make this happen. And for the clean meat companies, having them on their side helps retailer conversation. So instead of Memphis Meats, Mosa Meat, Super Meat going to the grocery store and say, hey, we want to be in the meat locker, and then all the meat producers screaming about it, then you have somebody else in the table with you saying, yeah, they should be there. They should be right next to us. Conventional meat, clean meat should be right there next to each other so the consumer can make a decision, not hidden across the store somewhere else.
There is a trend towards a more plant-based diet. It's becoming less of a cult thing, or less of a sect thing. It has become more sort of generally accepted than it was 10, 15 years ago. So I see that trend, and I don't know where that trend will stop. It may not stop. It may be that we're all gradually moving to a plant-based diet. Fine. I even do think that products like cultured meat may facilitate that.
There's just too many of us, and we're too rich to burden the planet with the traditional ways of producing food. At least some of the food. If you just do the math and you look at the resources it uses, and you think of the meat consumption in 2050, which is expected to be about 500 million tons, 500 billion kilos, it's just not going to fit. It's a practical problem. It's just not going to fit.
It really is this huge trend driven by millennials of just eating differently, eating more aligned with principles and values, demanding different things about the food that you eat, and also having a higher sensitivity towards animal welfare reasons. What we're seeing is a huge amount of growth driven by this massive cohort of people that then are demanding different types of products in the supermarket. And what results out of that is that, for example, plant-based meats have grown 60% since 2012. That's crazy high. And we expect them to be between $20 and $30 billion by 2030. That's a huge amount of growth.
Wait a second. It's been shown that we can create real meat in a laboratory by replicating animal cells. But is it really possible to make real meat out of plants? I wanted to learn more about the plant-based sector, so I headed to California to speak with Ethan Brown, the CEO of Beyond Meat.
I started the company in Maryland, got a lot of support from the University of Maryland and from the University of Missouri, which we later made a partnership with. The idea behind the founding of the company is the idea that guides us today, and that is that you don't need an animal to produce a piece of meat.
What I'm most excited about is companies like Beyond Meat that take products, plant-based products, and create them in a way that's multi-sensorial. So it's not just, you put a patty, you put some quinoa, you put lentils, you call it a day. It really is, how does this product interact with me when I look at it, when I smell it, when I bite into it, when it sizzles in my stove? That whole experience, it's what makes food such an incredible, passionate item for human beings. It's that whole thing. And I think up until now, in my humble experience, I think we've left out a lot of that sort of ancillary experience that makes products crave-worthy. And companies like Beyond Meat are really bringing back that multisensorial aspect. The food changes colors as you cook it. It releases different types of scents. And so that whole category is generating products that you want to drive 30 miles to go eat. And that's what we need. We need products that are not like, Meatless Monday, I guess I'll eat this, It really is something that, I really want to eat this thing right now. That's what we need, and that's what these companies are supplying.
While I was in Australia, I kept hearing about an all-vegan fast food chain called Lord of the Fries. And when they announced the release of the new Beyond Sausage, I knew that I had to try one. I spoke with the franchise owner, Rev, about his plans to bring vegan fast food to the people.
We want to convince them to eat our vegan food and get convinced by yourself, and they're going to change to veganism. That's our real motive to how they're going to change to veganism, and that's how it's growing faster.
Back to the Gold Coast. Fast food, yo, it's burgers and fries, and it used to hurt the earth and the birds in the sky, but now they making it with plants, and it's so much better, cause the animals are safe, no more changes in the weather. We better act fast, cause the ice barely freezing, the world's changing quick, so welcome to Planet Vegan.
The Beyond Meat sausage, the premium sausage is a Melbourne sausage.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Oh, yeah. That's really good. If you didn't tell me, I'd think that was just a normal sausage. Now, she's vegetarian. I'm not vegetarian, so I don't mind not, what I eat, but that's really delicious.
We came here just because I know I'm hungry and I know it's easy and I know it's safe.
For me, I think it's a really, really interesting way to go, and I think it's much healthier.
Okay, as you can see the posters around there, the buffalo chicken slaw is a gold miner. Then the Lot burger with the Beyond Meat patty. That's most booming burgers I have seen in the last 6 months. The Beyond Meat is a real digger.
So just pick like one of the pieces there. Be completely honest, be real with me. You think it's good?
Yes.
Okay, real quick. So does anything seem like strange about it or anything at all? Seems like a normal sausage, right? Okay, what if I told you it's 100% vegan?
No.
It's 100% vegan.
It's not vegan.
Is vegan?
Meat? Vegan.
Not meat?
Not meat. It's entirely made out of plants.
Pretty good.
Would you believe it?
We're not trying to produce a meat substitute, but we are actually in the business of building meat directly from plants. What we're doing is we're taking the core parts of meat, we're taking them directly from plants. And while that sounds exotic, if you think it through, it's actually somewhat simple. We're taking the amino acids from plants, we're taking the fats from plants, and we're taking, of course, trace minerals and water, all from these non-animal sources. And many of the ingredients we use are very familiar to people in their households. We really start our entire discussion and process with protein. And in this case, we see a different set of feedstocks here. The one that really is the workhorse for a lot of our products are peas. And what we do is we essentially separate the protein and fiber within a legume. And we can do it from things like sunflower seeds, we can do it from rice and mung bean. And as the industry expands, we'll be able to do it from a much broader set of proteins. But today, we rely on these. So the protein is separated out from the fiber in the feedstock. That's done by changing the pH level in water. And so you create that separation between the fiber and the protein. The protein's then dried and it's run through a heating, cooling, and pressure process that restitches it into the form that you would find in muscle. And that's to the naked eye. But a lot of other things we use are, again, pretty recognizable. We have coconut for our fat. We use potatoes for some of the mouthfeel. So in this case with the burger, we create that color. When it's raw, it looks like ground beef through applying beets. We picked beets because, one, it provides the color attributes that we needed, But I think more importantly, it's an ingredient that people can understand. Everyone's familiar with beets. And so when you're creating and you're innovating in the food space, you have to walk this fine line between applying all this tremendous technology that we have, but doing it with ingredients that people feel comfortable eating. Because over the course of evolution, we've been conditioned to avoid things we don't understand. Eating is a very intimate thing. Putting something in your mouth is very intimate. Throughout history, if you put the wrong thing in, it could kill you. So we have this conditioned conservatism around what products we're going to feel comfortable putting in our mouths. And so we wanted to be very respectful of that. So the ingredients we use are largely recognizable. And there are over 1,000 molecules that make meat taste like meat. So the task is to find the key drivers, let's say the 20% that are really delivering the most taste and aroma, and then find analogous or the same ones in plants, and then basically bring those into our product. And so it's a massive combinations game. We're trying to find the right combination, and that just takes iteration and takes time. But if you apply enough urgency to it, apply enough talent to it, you'll get it. Every small improvement we make in the product, taste, texture, et cetera, we welcome hundreds of thousands more people into the brand because they're saying, I'll have this.
Beyond Meat claims that their burger really tastes like meat, so we put it to the test. Right after the Beyond Burger was launched in Germany, our editor got a group of friends together and they hit the kitchen.
I'd say I've been eating meat since probably ever, yeah.
3 or 4 days a week I eat meat.
My grandma would go nuts if I had one day without meat.
Yeah, okay, there's vegetable, but barbecue is meat.
We're here for the meat.
Yes.
I always liked the taste of it. It's just that I didn't want to eat animals.
I'm expecting something like tofu. Thank you. Looks like a proper burger.
I mean, it looks amazing. Looks pretty normal, doesn't it?
Let's try.
Let's try.
That's good.
The texture is really good. It's like eating meat. I need another bite of it.
It's really nice.
It's very tasty.
Tastes great, man.
I thought a vegan burger is definitely dry.
I do think the sausage looks a little bit weird, to be honest, though.
Totally tastes like meat.
Tastes like a sausage.
If I could save animal lives due to eating this burger, I would eat it all the time.
The sausage is like phenomenal. Have you a sausage on your fork off?
Can I have the rest of your burger?
Yes, sure. You go.
I never eat meat because I want animals to die. I eat meat because it's cheap, it's there, and it's normal.
Definitely, for the first step, going for substitute, I could see myself actually doing that.
Over the last 18 months, there's been a quickening of demand and consciousness and desire for these products here in the US that's unlike anything I've ever seen.
We see over 30% of Americans saying that they want to eat less meat in general. You're seeing a growth in consumers who want to eat that exclusively. You're seeing a growth in the majority of the population, which wants to reduce the amount of animal-based products and eat more plant-based products, so that's huge. And then you're seeing a proliferation of just incredible, luscious products out there that make the transition, any transition, in whatever amount, so seamless and so delicious.
When it comes to food choices, consumers are actually pretty simple. It comes down to taste, price, and availability. And all those three factors are very much influenced by more and more companies going onto the vegan market and offering more alternatives. Then products become usually better from year after year. They become more available in supermarkets and restaurants. And because of the competition, the prices usually go down.
I think it's really good that restaurants and supermarkets are launching those products, and it's even better if they place them, for example, in a supermarket in the meat aisle. We vegans might not like going down the meat aisle, but it actually gives a real choice to people who are not yet vegan.
And this is good for everybody, because on the one hand, the vegans suddenly have more options, and they can just choose for more delicious food. But even people who don't really consider going vegan yet, more and more of them actually say, well, if there's this great vegan options, maybe I'll start with 2 days a week eating those, and maybe a few years from now it's going to be 5 or maybe even 7 days a week.
It took many months to get into a conversation with Whole Foods, but they ultimately did accept the product. They've been great. We wouldn't be here without Whole Foods. And so we got into about 33, 35 stores throughout the Mid-Atlantic region. And over this decade, we're now in 127,000. And so it's been great growth. One of the great things that's happened with the Beyond Burger is we were really insistent on getting into the meat case. We wouldn't sell it to a retailer unless they put it in the meat case. And in one of the largest conventional grocers in the country, in their Southern California region, right, we are now the #1 selling packaged burger in the meat case. So we're outselling 80/20 beef, Angus beef, chicken patties, turkey patties, et cetera. So that was, the desire was literally not to get thrown out, and now we're in the #1 position.
Since Ethan founded the company in 2009, Beyond Meat has been changing the way that people think about plant-based meat. However, the inspiration for the sense of urgency behind this growth came from an unlikely source.
Very early on in the history of Beyond Meat, I was asked to come visit one of the largest food companies in the United States. They wanted to license some of our technology to extend the brand that they had in meat substitutes. And so I went, and it was a very impressive place, and had long meetings throughout the day. And at the end, I asked them how many people are working on what they were calling meat substitutes, which I don't refer to them that way. And they said, we have 1/2 of one researcher. Imagine if I told you there's a massive global problem, and a massive health problem, there's these ethical issues, et cetera, and we're gonna put 1/2 of one person on it. It just didn't make sense to me, right? And so I think what we've had thus far in this space up until the last 4 or 5 years is a culinary approach to a global scientific problem, right? And we need to bring a scientific approach to a global scientific problem.
Okay, so the Beyond Burger may taste great, and it's clearly great for the animals. But is it actually better for the environment? Turns out it is. Compared to a traditional quarter-pound beef patty, the Beyond Burger uses 99% less water, 93% less land, and produces 90% fewer greenhouse gas emissions.
The other piece is that this is going to be good for farmers. If we start to use those fields that we're currently planting in animal feed to grow crops for direct human consumption through our process, those farmers will make more money. If you start to introduce crops that we can use, things like legumes, pulses that are rich in protein, that farmer will be putting more money per acre back into their pocket. I view that being an increase in efficiency that's as dramatic as when we introduced the combine. The combine came on in the early 1900s, and it transformed agriculture. We created so much excess product that the government literally had to buy it and set it aside to stabilize prices. I think that by taking the animal out of the protein production equation, producing protein directly in those fields, you'll have a similar increase in efficiency that could do wonders for the rural economy here in the U.S. And the challenge is getting people like the Cattlemen's Association to stop fighting it, and more farmers excited about the opportunity versus being scared by it.
When we think of the largest burger slingers in the world, it's typically the fast food chains that have taken over society with dollar cheeseburgers and convenient drive-thrus. All around the world, we're already seeing the plant-based fast food revolution begin. Burger King now sells the Impossible Whopper in more than 10,000 of their locations.
I'm confused. I'm reevaluating my life.
McDonald's in the UK is making their own fully vegan burger featuring a Beyond Meat patty.
Vegan?
That is amazing.
No, I have to say, Jack, it is nice.
And KFC is serving up Beyond Chicken in all of their locations in the United States.
Beyond Fried Chicken, only at KFC.
So is a meat-free world on the horizon?
I don't think that meat is going away. I do think that you can absolutely transition people to plant-based meat if it's good enough. And that's where the money comes in. That's where the research comes in. That's where the intensity comes in, because we have to make it good enough or people aren't going to make the change. And I think there's a latent desire for these products. People love meat. They want to keep consuming it. But they are recognizing there's sort of this noise in the background about maybe some of the reasons that they should reduce meat consumption. We don't necessarily want to do that, but let's innovate our way out of it. And that's what we're trying to do.
I do see us as being on a tipping point, because once you get to about 30%, between 20 and 30% of a population who is consistently doing something, then it becomes part of everyday conversations, it becomes part of the media, it becomes part of what the retailers are bringing to offer consumers to stay on trends, to stay competitive. And then you see that tipping point of where any menu out there has plant-based products. Because it's now not something that it's optional for a couple of people. Is, hey, a large group, a large segment of your consumers want to reduce meat, want to reduce animal-based products. You have to have something amazing out there for them. And so once you get that foot in the door, then it becomes inevitable.
You have all this information out there now that's more and more available. So when I was growing up, you had to read like an Up Sinclair, The Jungle or something, or PETA had to give you something or whatever. Today, it's accessible on your phone, tons of information, right? So consumers are being bombarded with that. There's not 3 months to 6 months would go by without a major health study coming out that makes some association between animal protein and some disease, right? So there's a lot of that out there. The environmental thing is getting stronger. The condition under which animals are being raised is getting more and more publicity. So all these things are happening, and I think that's driving millennials and Generation Z in this direction. And then you have the perfect storm of the sort of older population who's being told by their doctor to reduce red meat consumption. So all these factors coming together to quicken demand in a way that I think is unprecedented.
It's what needs to happen. And it's not only for animals, which by itself is a worthwhile reason why it should end, but it needs to happen because from a human health standpoint, from a sustainability standpoint, these things are not nice to have. They're not something that a small group of us can do and the rest of us can do something else. We all have to be united in changing the way that we eat and how we source our food because we only have this one planet. We kind of need to keep it. It has to happen in our lifetime. It's not something that generations from now need to take care of. We need to take care of that.
Next time on Planet Vegan.
It's no joke that when I try to counsel people into adopting more of a vegan diet, that, oh, I can do that, but I gotta have my cheese.
Their goal was to make a change by offering the people tasty vegan cheese without the cruelty.
The compounds that are found in cow's milk are really targeted to baby cows.
Cheese causes a lot of health problems, but most importantly, cheese is addicting.
The most important thing we can do in terms of health and longevity is what we put in our mouth.
To me, the word vegan means justice. People overlook the fact that it's very inefficient to be breeding, feeding, giving water, giving land to raise animals just so we can use their bodies as resources.
We going back to the Gold Coast. Fast food, yo, it's burgers and fries. And it used to hurt the earth and the birds in the sky. But now they making it with plants and it's so much better. Cause the animals are safe, no more changes in the weather. We better act fast cause the ice barely freezing. The world's changing quick, so welcome to Planet Vegan. Yeah, okay, we about to change the world, right? Okay. All around the world, it's the same new dance. What you making out of bodies, yeah, we're making out of plants. We gotta save the pigs and the fishes in the sea. So hold on to your pants, Planet Vegan soon to be. There's a change up in the system, I can feel it in the air. But it benefits us all, there's no need to be scared. We're gonna change the world and we'll do it in a day. So don't fight the future, Planet Vegan's here to stay. We going back to the Gold Coast.